Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Well, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Will Roberts. He's going to talk about, he's a modern-day political humorist. So if you want to call in and chat, go ahead and throw us an email at hashtag Apple Capital, or go ahead and post a question in the chat room. Or you can go ahead and call in at 347-324-3460. Again, 347-324-3460. Will, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, Tim. It's very exciting to be on your show. I've done the research, and you're pretty known for what you do.
Well, kind of tell us about yourself and how you got started.
All right, good. Well, basically, I'm considered a modern-day Will Rogers, and if you don't know who Will Rogers is, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. Will Rogers, back in the last turn of the century, well, the one before this one, in the early 1920s and 30s, was a political and social humorist that was a cowboy trick roper to start with Ziegfeld Follies, and that was the large, big extravaganza show in the turn of that century. He utilized all the media that they had at that time, which was really only radio and print, and then very, very briefly a little bit of television, but nothing really big. But anyway, they would say that whenever Will did an event, it was actually an event. If he didn't, it wasn't. He jokes around with all the politicians. Basically, I have followed in Will's footsteps in the sense that I truly am a trick roper and a gun spinner, a cowboy performer. I perform on the Las Vegas Strip 10 shows a week, and a very, very large show. I can't say which one, but I will say I do 10 shows a week doing that. And I, again, as a trick roper and doing my thing. But when I'm not doing that, I am a political and social humorist that is syndicated on a lot of websites. You can see me, a couple of my segments called Will Says. I also run the radio circuit and do a weekly or a daily, I should say, on a lot of stations, commentary. Sort of like, if you wanted to put it in perspective, nowadays it would be I'm the Andy Rooney or the Paul Harvey of our time, considering both those incredible human beings who have passed. But I have a PBS segment. They're great commentary folks, but the next people step in place, and I've been doing this for about 10, 12-ish years, and I have a segment on PBS that I do called Will Roberts Weekly Telegram, and really, I'm really kind of just, I call my tour when I travel, I used to travel about 200 times a year, I call it Common Sense Tour, because that's all we can afford. So it's really just me shooting out there and sort of following in and emulating the life of Will Rogers and trying to, all of my stuff is really, there's not a lot of four-letter word, actually there are none. I try to hit everything on both sides. I hit them on both sides. Mm-hmm. I don't really, technically I'm an independent, and what that means to me is that I can flip a coin and I can go either side. If a politician does that, it's called a flip-flopper.
Wow.
So that's kind of
inspired you? Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
What inspired you to be a political humorist? I know you mentioned Will Rogers in the past, but kind of tell us, was it a flashlight and all of a sudden you say, boom, I'm going to go into this?
Yeah, it kind of was in a way. A lot of my life I had spent in my earlier years and being, I was raised actually in Illinois, and my family was, I guess the only way of putting it is that 99%, but they were more of the 10%, really, really poor, up to 99%. And so I moved a lot when I was a kid. I moved probably 15 times before I was 12, and I tell that to a lot of folks, and they say, "Oh, military family." I say, "No, bad checks." But as funny as that is, it was kind of true. So I got a chance to really find out how.
Will, you still there? Hey, Will, we're going to take a break real quick for our audience real quick, and we can see if we can go back and dial into Will's number. We're going to take a station break. We'll be back with Will Roberts, modern day Will Rogers humorist. Be back in a moment. We'll take a break with the Core Business Show. Be back in a moment with Tim Jacquet. Take care.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com. Welcome back to the Core. Once again, here's Tim Jacquet.
Again, we're back with Will Roberts. He's a modern-day humorist. Will, let's be back from the station break. Sorry about for the tech mishap. So go ahead and continue. We were talking about
I'll tell you. Yeah, but I will say before we do that I love modern technology, but sometimes I just wish I had 2 cups and a string so we can get it straight. You know? So basically, I traveled around a lot as a kid and in my younger life, and I learned that it was about helping people. And for the longest time in my teens and my 20s, I spent really helping people. I'd stop and help people at a flat tire. I made the effort to say hello or open doors for people and so on. And a girlfriend at the time said, you should look into this because it might be a dysfunction. And what I realized later on, after we see each other anymore, is I realized it was really just, I started getting into Will Rogers stuff because I've done a show called Will Rogers Follies and played Will Rogers when I was working for Fox Kids Television. They asked me to do that show, and I quickly realized that I was really sort of just following Will Rogers' philosophy, which is, talk to people, communication, and really simplicity. I have a whole thing that I do when I speak in public. It's called Simple Sense, because common sense is not so common anymore. And I really quickly realized that my life is about helping people. And so that's really the key, is that I found that in the Will Rogers philosophy. And so then I started about 12, 14 years ago, because I ride in Little anyway before this, I decided to start, really kind of getting into the philosophy of Will Rogers. And then I talked to the family of Will Rogers, and there's a bunch of them still around, and there's Claremore, Oklahoma, that was he's got a museum there, and in Los Angeles, California, he has the park there. But I talked to them, and they said, "Oh, are you going to do the Will material?" I'm like, "No, because I want to do the philosophy of it." And I said, "Well, there's about 10 other guys who make Will material, but it's okay for you to do that." Well, the thing is that I go to events, and I had one time with 2,000 people, and one person said, "Hey, you're the guy that has the white tail and the horse trigger." Well, quickly realized that was the demographic, and because he had been dead for 70 years, that if I was trying to be like Will Rogers, the problem was that no one knew who he was. So I just basically took the philosophy and sort of the angle, poking fun at both sides and having no malice in my jokes, and hence here I am 12 years later, and I've really accomplished I feel a pretty good feat in trying to get out there. However, is it not needed more than now in our country to have simple sense? I think so.
Wow. So, being a political humorist, how do you define that in a nutshell?
Well, in a nutshell, I would say that, and I say that I'm a political and / cultural humorist. Like, I'll oftentimes make comments about people and technology and text them. It's funny that we have a little bit of connection there, and I'm a really big person on social media and a big person on technology. I love it. I think it's really great. It's enabling me to do a lot of things. But in the process of having social media, it's also allowed us to become anti-social. You could be sitting in the midst of 20 people that are your friends at a party, but ultimately you'll look around and you'll see 1 to 19 or 20 of them with their phones by their side, They might be listening to you, but they got that deer in the headlights look because what they're doing is they're checking their Facebook to make sure that they're fine. You might have 2,000 people that you have on Facebook and Twitter, but the problem now is that we're not relating to the people in our inner circles right in front of us. So I always say that, I think the slogan used to be Mom Apple Pie and Chevrolet, but now it's Mom Apple Pie and high-speed internet. They say that, that people, it's the truth. They say that people can last up to 2 weeks without food, 1 day without water, but I'm totally convinced that 5 minutes without internet and we die.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's just embedded in our society. I don't think we can really get out of it.
No, we can't. But hopefully we can figure out what to do with it, not to become. I don't want to be a Luddite, and I don't know if you know what a Luddite is. It's a gentleman that, by the last name of Luddite, or Lud, I think it was Luddite, something like that. But he refused any sort of technology, and that's what you call it. You don't like technology. I love technology. We have to figure out how to utilize it in our lives. And, when I go to a restaurant and I look over and I see a family of 5 and 5 of them have iPhones or iPads and they're sitting there going to town, you got to wonder if you're really, tapping into real communication or alienating your family,
Yeah, absolutely right. I know you have something, you have a political humor page on, besides your own page, your website, politicalcomedians.com, but you also have something within iTunes. Kind of tell us, do you have like 20 or 30 shows in iTunes? And can you tell us about those particular series?
Sure. Well, actually, I have like almost 60 or 70, but they only show 20 at a time. And what it is that, iTunes allows you to do podcasting. Again, that's another wonderful thing that I kind of parallel to Will Rogers is that back in his turn of the century, he was really tapping into any kind of media he could to be able to get the word out and really to get himself out there. And we are now in our technology turn of the century and now having Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes. We're on the internet right now with Blog Talk Radio, which, by the way, is, in my opinion, singularly the best internet radio. I don't want to call it conglomerate, but situation there is because you can now have your voice and eat it too. and iTunes allows me to get out there. I have a home studio that I have, or on the road studio, and something comes up, and I get my editors will say, "Hey, give me something about what's happening with austerity," and I'll say, "Okay, great." So knock something out because I've gotten to the point now where I can usually flash something out within a couple of minutes, and then I have my blue microphone and my Mac laptop, and I edit it and sound something, and the next thing you know, I sound like I spent a lot of money in the studio. And the reality is that I have a platform which is called iTunes or possibly Blog Talk Radio, which we're on, and bingo, I'm out there.
Wow. So you think it's a lot easier today to really get the word out, or really someone, looking at the business, they have more mediums to get themselves out and get themselves noticed, even with producers and owners.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I've been doing this business for 27 years. And the thing is, the entertainment business, and I was in there back in the 80s when 80s and 90s, when I was working at a station, and if I wanted to, for Fox Kids, I wanted to produce something, I would take our camera out, which is a $100,000 or $200,000 beta camera that weighed 300 pounds or whatever it was, it seemed like that, and a tripod that weighed equally as much, and you bring it out and you shoot it, and then you get back and you edit it in a beta that was $150,000. I have to say the truth. I now use my iPhone apps with a thing called a Google. It's the docking that I put it in with the lens on it. That's an XLR or SLR lens, and then I take the footage and I edit it on my phone at 1080p, and I send it to PBS television, and they say, "Wow, this is great. What camera do you use?" It's like $50,000. I go, "It was my iPhone." So I literally can edit, shoot, and do everything I need to do on an iPhone. I used to try to do it all, 15, 20 years ago, the same kind of technology, and it would be horrible. Well, even if I tried to do it on a laptop, on a PC, I used to say bad words about PC, but I crashed more PCs than the demolition derby did cars.
Wow. So what type of app do you use for your iPhone? So when you do your recording?
I'll give you a couple of things. You're definitely a technology person, the program. There's two things I do. I don't know if you've seen the cartoons that you see that I have out there too. You seen those?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, there's two things I do. I do my podcast work. I do my segments. You can see my YouTube channel is Will Rogers USA as well. It's Will Rogers USA, and you'll see a lot of my segments on there, and they're all produced. I shoot with my iPhone, and the S allows you to do 1080p, which is HD. The ones below that are just 720, but that's okay too. The stations will take that. And then what I do is I use iMovie because it allows me to do, I can do transitions, but most of the time news stations only really want to have, they're called news cuts. They're not going to be like funky fades and things rolling in and out. So I do really quick, easy fades or quick clips. And then you can do a thing called lower third, which is a little thing that swings below, and it has a graphic. It's usually in the industry, you'd have to go to After Effects and make those with a lot of money. And then I can put all the names and URLs I want. And then what I do is I basically just export it onto my camera section, and I can take that file and I can upload it straight with an FTP program that I got off of, obviously as an app, doesn't matter, there's a couple of them. And I literally FTP it to the station server, bingo, and take it off. There's no second generation, there's no nothing, because it's straight up, straight digital. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you have your shows that you do during the week? How do you manage all of this in your time?
I don't sleep much, I'll tell you, I will be absolutely totally honest with you that I'm a firm believer in eating right. My wife and I, and my daughter, we all are really good at, we try to eat organic food and just make sure it's not, we don't do processed foods, or as often as we can, we try to stay away from everything like that. But what I will tell you, I'm prefacing by saying that because I don't want you to think I live off of $5 energy drinks. I totally am against anything like this $5 energy drinks. I see people in my shows, I've got 70 people on the show, 75, and I see some of those younger kids gulping those things down with a bag of, Funyuns, and they're calling that a meal. And I'm just letting you know that my thing, I think it gives me the energy, is the passion that allows me to know that that maybe one person might be affected and maybe laughing. I'm not a comedian, by the way. I'm a humorist, and there's a big difference. A comedian has to be funny. A humorist doesn't.
Wow. For example, if you had to compare yourself, what your style is like, Andrew Rooney, God rest his soul, he was a funny little guy, but until his very end. What style that you think you have? What is your style?
I'd like to say, and the thing is that people can't relate to it because they don't know who Will Rogers is really, but my style is kind of folksy. So I know there's a gentleman by the name of Hightower, Jim Hightower, that does it. And there's a couple other people that do it as well, but, quite honestly, because I spent most of my younger years on television working for Fox Kids, and at the time I was raised on, Saturday morning cartoons, and so my approach usually tends to be sort of like, I try to be, I am a physical comedian, so that never seems to slip away from me. Sometimes you'll see me doing some of this, like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I like to believe entertaining, but I don't know, I'd say that it's kind of a cross between, a Robin Williams sort of like, well, that's clever, and maybe just myself. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. You can go to comedians.com and see it, and the writing, and quite honestly, for me to take on and be a writer, considering the student I was, is ultimately amazing itself. I confuse spell check.
Wow. We're going to take another break real quick, and we'll be back in a moment with Will Roberts, modern day humorist. We'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com. Welcome back to the core. Once again, here's Tim Jacquet.
We're back with Will Roberts again, modern day humorist. I guess, Will, for example, I think you said you settled in Oklahoma, but right now you're in Las Vegas. How did you transition from Oklahoma to Las Vegas?
Well, I actually didn't live. First of all, I'm going to start off every time I get back out of a break with you, I'm going to start off with some other little epiphany. And the epiphany I had before when we went to break was that I'm sitting here talking into the phone, and lo and behold, when we went to break, you made me pretty clear that I'm actually not speaking anywhere near the microphone. So I hope it sounds a lot better to your people.
Yeah, it does.
Good. Okay, I'm sitting there going, my gosh, I would have been better off with 2 cups and a string. Anyway. So, actually, no, I never lived in Oklahoma. I just have my segment that's in Oklahoma. And that's, again, the beauty of technology is that I literally have, a program that I do in Oklahoma that I shoot here in Las Vegas. And then I'm able to be there. And then I have my column, which is pretty much all over the country. And one of the main places in Australia called international.to. They're a news magazine. So it's kind of funny. Just technology allows you to be anywhere and everywhere, but most of the time wondering where you're at that moment.
So when you do this, I mean, you don't get a chance to sleep. My gosh, with a show. The show runs 7 days a week or 6 days a week?
Yeah. Well, no, it's 5 days a week, and that show is actually going to be ending soon. I've been doing that for like 3.5 years, but I'll be back out on the road, which is actually very delightful for me because as much as I do love my family and I do love being here steady and doing stuff in Las Vegas, I have to be honest with you that, I just want to get out there and be back where the people are. The disadvantage of doing 10 shows a week, that's 2 shows a day, 5 days a week, is that this is such a large show that I do. I do a segment of it where I do my trick roping and gun spinning, and I spin a big fire rope and everything. The advantage of that is that, of course, a lot of people can see me. The disadvantage is that I'm just a guy that usually likes to stand up in front of everybody, talk to them for a while, throw a little couple things out, ask them questions, and that doesn't allow me to do that because nowadays our modern day extravaganzas are just shows, which basically means we show you and you watch and you pay tickets. And so, that's just the way it is. And nowadays, I think that entertainment is changing. I think I'm time in the right space because, I always tell people, they go, wow, Las Vegas audiences are down and they're not as big as they were before, whether you were in the 90s and so on, in the early 2000s. And I think the reason why is because people don't want to pay really large ticket prices to come see shows anymore when they can flip on the internet, go onto YouTube and watch a cat that gets behind. Well, it's behind legs. Sorry about that. I'm glad I finished that. And it gets 3 million views in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? I mean, people want to be interactive. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, something to grab their attention.
Yeah, it's just not that difficult anymore. If you do the right formula, which is, in my opinion, is that having conversations or interactive. And a lot of these big shows that you see nowadays, you certainly can't be interactive, and they're telling you to turn your phones off. And one of the most clever things I saw a show do recently here on the Strip is they say, take pictures, go ahead, shoot video. We don't care. Why wouldn't they? Think about it. These people spend millions of dollars a year on advertising, millions, if not more. When in reality, if they let someone shoot something and it becomes viral off of someone's phone, you're going to get more advertising buck for your bang for your buck than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, because they're going to want to see it. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's right. I need to see that.
Right,
and justify the price.
Right.
One thing I have noticed, I think, when I haven't been in Vegas for the last couple of years, I know they usually always have pushing a lot of shows. Things that turned the tide for the last couple of years. They're not really, you have people on the street trying to sell their shows, trying to sell their show. I think because of have they start cutting back on vendors, or how things just really streamlined with the internet?
Well, I'm sorry, but is your question, why are they having a lapse?
Having to switch focus to more of the internet and the hotels, and versus having people on the strip trying to push the shows?
Well, they still have a lot of that, but mainly what they have, you can't bring your kids to. And if you're walking down the strip, just make sure your kid isn't the kid that make sure your kid is the kid that looks up in the sky, because if they look on the ground, you might have to cover your kid's eyes a bunch. And if you've been to Las Vegas, you know what that means. There's those little business cards in the ground.
Yeah.
It's not for a tax lawyer. It's not for a tax lawyer. So in any case, but one of the things I'm saying is that, see, I think that again, the big ticket items and people spending a lot of money. There's a certain group or two here in Las Vegas that have defined what entertainment is. And we define what entertainment is all around the world. But here's the problem. Back in the 90s, when that was really exciting and new, and people saw people doing things that were spectacular, like amazing, they would say, "Wow, that's amazing." But nowadays, everybody does it. So what's the next step? Is the next step going to be that we're going to resurrect someone from the dead on stage? I mean, everybody's trying to top each other. And the problem you have with that, it's like trying to beat the guy in a drag race. The only way you're going to beat that guy is by going and getting and selling your car and getting another car that you spend more money on that's better. And then he does that. And then you do that. And then he does that. I think my point's pretty clear that you can only spend a certain amount of money in business until you realize that your investment may just be it's like buying a home and then having this whole mortgage thing happen and saying, well, if I just put a pool in and some really beautiful girls in bikinis, I know I can sell it. Well, bottom line is that one of those two things is going to be way too expensive and you're not going to get any money back from it. And I think we know which one, by the way.
Wow. If you talk about, for example, if you bring us, I know you're getting ready to come out with another book. Can you tell us about this new book that's coming out in the next few weeks or months?
Okay. Yeah, it's like a month. So I'm trying to hit it before the election, but I'll tell you, truthful, the problem is that things are happening so fast with the elections right now and the way things are happening with the Democrats and the Republicans, it's making it difficult for me to take any time out because, I purely grab my stuff from, Will Rogers used to say, all I know is what I read in the newspaper. Well, I say all I know is what I read on the internet. It's true. It may not be the truth on the internet, but it's certainly believed by a lot of people. But I grab my headlines, and I always have like Google News up or something, and I grab the headlines off the news each day, and I go, oh, this is interesting. Most of the time, I don't even have to rewrite it. It's just a matter of, looking at the way it says it. And I saw this headline that said, the whole thing with Scott Walker in Wisconsin and the whole union busting thing. And, he won the election last Tuesday. And of course, the Democrats have, they're walking down the streets now with pitchforks and torches. But anyway, it said, Walker, tall, and carry a big stick or have $56 million in campaign money. If you know enough about what happened on Tuesday, that's pretty funny. But, I grab my stuff off of the news. I usually have a newspaper or my iPad with the New York Times or I like the USA Today because it's, in my opinion, kind of a Reader's Digest version of news. People don't really like to look more than one page. So what they do on USA Today is they put everything on one page. It's like 3 lines and it tells you that's all the news you need to know. And then it doesn't make you look to this 7 pages to get the rest of the story. They just do little snippets because our attention span is so short. So I grab it.
Wow.
I try to report on it.
Looking at the presidential candidates, I don't see anything really funny about either one of them. I know as being a humorist, oh my God, who can I talk about? Because neither one of them are really funny. George Bush was funny. He was something to laugh about, but Romney and there's nothing funny about them. And it's like it's no humor.
Well, the problem is, Tim, is that right now, what we're facing the fact that we're realizing something really important, and that is that politics in general is the problem. If politics was honest, my mother would have run a long time ago. But the bottom line is that they've kind of, on both sides, we've turned this more into a 3-ring circus than we have a political statement. And the thing is that, it is hard to find humor sometimes, but because one side always attacks so quickly on the other side, so unfortunately, that makes it difficult. But here's something, that recently, something I pulled out, but Recently, Ray Bradbury died, the great writer, the science fiction writer. And then also, remember Richard Dawson from, the Family Feud? Okay. He too. Both these old guys died, and some others. And I'm totally convinced that they died because they just don't want to have to go to Romney. Because they're an older demographic. I know they're Republicans. I know enough Republicans. And by the way, I will be very clear to say that I have many friends who are Republicans. Sometimes we don't talk because, unfortunately, it depends on what the news cycle is, but I have them.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it's just really kind of awkward. Like I said, now Reagan was really funny.
Yeah.
Well, you had, Cowboy Days, and people just
Bush
was old cowboy.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for saying that both the people that you think were funny were cowboys. Thank you. You said Bush and Reagan. Thank you very much. And by the way, Carter might have been in there too.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But you know what? I tell you, Tim, I'm totally convinced that politicians have proven that strength in numbers is not always the way to solve a problem. I mean, they're really kind of a mess. As a matter of fact, I think the more politicians you put on a job, the less likely you get to get done,
Wow. This is amazing. In closing, this new book will be out. Are you self-publishing this book, or is it going to be by a publisher?
That's kind of a good question because, I put out an audio or so, and, I've been putting out a book until one of my editors, kind of knocked on my door and said, you realize you have like 4 years of stuff, and it's really very funny, and they pulled out literally one book of all these sayings that I have that I've done. And I looked at it and they sent me an email. I said, take a look at these. And I said, wow, this is really great. Where'd you get this? And they go, it's yours. And I went, oh. And they said, now read this. And I went, oh, that's like almost 300 pages. And I said, what is that? And they go, that's a book. That's only part of the stuff you've written. And I went, oh, interesting. So I don't know actually, because I hadn't really, to be quite honest with you, and I've said this all throughout the program, I almost sound like I'm a car salesman. But really, I never really thought about putting the book out because really I have a mission, and my mission is kind of more heartful than it is pocketbookful. But it is going to be a book that I'm calling, I'm not sure, I might call it The United States of Hysterical. It's kind of, I call it a crackpot's take on, politics of today. Or it might just be called my common sense thing. I'm not totally sure, but I certainly will let you all know, and I'll get you a copy of it. But it's really just some of the stuff. It's really, literally, it's Bush to Obama. It ends when Obama took office, the day of or something, and I put something in there. And a lot of times I look at my stuff and I say to myself, maybe I'm being too serious, but then I read a couple lines down and I realize that no, I'm not. Don't take me seriously. If you do, then you're obviously, taking the wrong side of it.
How do your material come to you? I know you mentioned that you read a lot of things, but you're just sitting. Joan Rivers was talking today on NPR, and she was talking about how her materials and how she came about this whole system. And she said, how things, they just look around. Everything you look at is really funny. So how do these things come to you? Just in the middle of the day or at the night? How do you write your material?
Well, really, most of I told you I don't sleep much, but I find that most of the stuff that it might just come to me like I'll read something. I was reading something recently about this guy who was a hero and so on, and I kind of thought about it, and then afterwards I read the last part of it saying that he's sponsored by someone, and I thought to myself, this is really, really kind of silly. And at that moment, I came up with, it used to be a hero, you just had to work hard and you were selfless. Now it just takes a good marketing budget. So, and that's kind of the truth. And it'll just come to me, and then I'll get my iPhone out I used to write it down, but unfortunately I can't read my writing, so I just look at a bunch of chicken scratch and go, wonder what that said. But I get my iPhone out and I'll either do the Siri thing where I can speak it in there, or I'll write it down. And the next thing you know, just because I'm sort of trained myself to kind of have that angle, I'll have 3 pages of stuff in 10 minutes. And I'll have to, of course, send it to my editors so people can understand my writing in the sense of the spelling and the grammatical things. But I'm not trying to be a scholar. I'm just trying to have people look at things a little bit differently. And if we can all do that, maybe we can start looking at what's happening a little differently as well,
Wow. What do you like to leave, if someone's coming up and want to follow your footsteps? What advice would you give them?
Well, advice I give anybody on anything that they want to do is if you think that you're working too hard and you want to give up, then you just started. And I mean that in the sense that, again, I've been doing this for 27 years. And how long have you been doing the radio show?
Actually, 6 months, because we're actually, about 6 months now.
Great.
And
Well, I'm sure before you did the show, I'm almost sure before you did the show, because I've done about 7 or 10 years worth of radio, that you probably thought, wow, I'd really like to do this. It would be great. Here's my goal and my, what I'd like to see happen. And until you actually, and this is coming from a right brain guy, and if you know anything about right and left brain thinks this is a really great idea, and the left brain actually gets it done. So I've fought much of my life trying to get my right brain to talk to my left brain, and somewhere in the middle make myself into a business person. It's actually, in my opinion, I think that might be the problem with the 99%, theory of this whole 1% is that 1% is really good at making sure that they have goals set for the day. And unfortunately, the 99% is, I'm seeing that a lot of times that they have an idea, but they're not executing it. And I say to folks out there that if you really want to achieve something, you can't give up really until you achieve it. And if you really don't want to do that, then maybe that's not what you should do. But, I've always been driven, and I've always tried to approach things in a way that comes from my heart and not my head or my wallet. And that's kept me pretty true.
What actually, if you think about 5 years, what do you want to be in 5 years from now?
A household name. And by the way, I'll do it in 2.5.
Do it in 2.5. There you go.
I'll do it in 2.5. And what I mean by that is that, there's a thing that when I speak and I do my stuff, and I'm hoping that this is not just ego, but I have conversations with people all the time, and people will read my writing, and they'll see my segments on air, and they'll go, "Oh, you're right about this and that." And I'm really driven to be able to really kind of get our country back to do one thing that I think that won't cost us anything. It's absolutely free, and that's talk. It's a four-letter word, I know, but if we can just talk. I have this firm belief that nowadays, because I did spend a lot of time in that talk radio is more talk at you radio. You really rarely, you can flip on a station and you hear I don't know how they can call it talk radio when they're always yelling at people. And obviously you're doing a great job because you're asking questions and you're allowing me to blather on and on. But in most cases, our society is no longer set up to be able to have conversations. We're only allowed to be able to, just kind of speak our own truths. And then we, most of the time, are so angry that we don't let other people speak as well.
Well, I think that's all about ratings, and they try to push the envelope, which is just, you don't really have to do that, but I guess that's who they are, to try to get that. In closing, what do you want to leave us with?
I'm sorry, what?
In closing, what do you want to leave us with, if you have any other advice for listeners?
Well, I think what I would say is that really spend some time putting down our phones, and I've got mine in my hand, but, achieving things or emailing people or texting or Facebooking or tweeting or whatever is a really great thing. But the problem is that we need to consume ourselves with the people around ourselves. And, when was the last time you looked to your right and your left and your neighbors were there and you said hello? And, is it because we feel as though they're not going to say hello back? Is it because we don't care? I saw a gentleman the other day with a shirt on that said, "I'm a member of the people, I don't trust people club." And I thought to myself, man, that's a lonely club. You're the only one in it. And the bottom line is that I think our society has become a little too cynical. And I think that at this point we just need to, again, talk. Even though it's a four-letter word, as I say, I think it might help us achieve what we need to. But in order for us to be able to do that as well, we have to listen. So utilize those two things. If you talk and then listen. And in most cases, if you want to talk about success of marriage, try just listening first and then let the talking happen later.
Wow, that's some great advice. Kind of give us a good website address again, and also, I think your website, and also if they need to contact you by email.
Sure. I kind of feel like I might have just spent the last part of the thing being Marcus Wilby, but anyway,
No, it was great. I really appreciate it.
Good. Well, okay, political comedians, plural, politicalcomedians.com. You can email me if you want to email me, will@willrogersusa.com. That's at willrogersusa. I love to have people send me in questions and say, hey, what do you think about this? Can you throw something out there? And I'll do that as well. So in any case, that's what I think about that. Let's see what else. Twitter.com/Will Roberts USA. If I could possibly give you 4 more things that are even closely related to the last URL thing I did, I can try, but I should have one place you can go, centrally located, but that's where I'm at right now. So again, twitter.com/Will Roberts USA. I love to tweet back and forth people's things and kind of respond to them. So there I am.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and spending this time with us, and wish you the very best on your shows and when you finish your shows and your new book when it comes out. Look forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. I'm looking on the airwaves. And by the way, when you get to Vegas, Tim, you know you got a ticket to see see my show, and we'll have a lot of fun.
Okay. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next week. Thank you
brother.
so much.
Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Right, bye-bye.
Take care. Okay. Bye-bye. Again, it's been another production of the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. Thank you guys for listening for this late night. You can download this show on iTunes, on Blog Talk Radio, and also take a look at Will Roberts' Modern Day Will Rogers website at politicalcomedians.com, or also check him out also on Twitter. Everybody, thank you for listening, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For a free quote on equipment leasing and financing, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com, and fill out the information to receive your free quote. We hope you'll join us for our next episode, and remember, you can always get to the Core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. Thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.